Well, this is interesting music. In other words, when the physician assistant tells you what to do, you better do it. Jeremy Daly joining us this morning. He is with Tripp Family Medicine here in Twin Falls. We're at 37 and coming up on 8:34. Bill Colley, too, also taking telephone calls, handling that end of the show this morning. So what do you have on tap?
Well, I thought we'd talk about something we've addressed before in the past, but it's something that I see so often, and so many people bring this up, and sometimes it's kind of like, hey, by the way, and it's basically issues with their sleeping, with their sleep cycle, and basically feeling like, in general, their sleep is a big part of their health that isn't being addressed, or
Right.
that is a concern to them. But people tend to say, well, by the way, it's never like, I'm coming in to talk about my sleep. It's like, well, I'm here, I have a cold. By the way, my sleep has been terrible for the last 15 years. And now that I'm coming in for a cold, I might as well address it. So that's really what I want to talk about today, some of the sleeping disorders that I see on a regular basis, and how to recognize those symptoms in yourself, and do they need to be addressed? Why is it important to have sleep issues addressed?
Well, I've been on that end of that. I have a CPAP mask, and what's interesting is I went through a brief period where I didn't use the thing when I transitioned jobs, and I don't recall. I think maybe because it's tough to recreate your memory of what it was like a few years ago. But when I had it in my first job and I was using it every night, I didn't think it made much of a difference. Although my snoring went away and my apnea virtually went away too. I mean, I went from 100 apneas to two. But when I returned to using it when I got this job, I noticed a heck of a difference in my sleep patterns and how I feel during the course of the day. I'm not sitting there at my desk drowsy, and I'm not going home in the middle of the afternoon and falling asleep for 20 minutes on the couch. So there is a dramatic difference right away that I can see just in the fact that I'm not tired at certain parts of the day any longer. And that to me was a huge relief because obviously it tells you that whatever is, it's working. But I know that beyond that, from what I've been told by you and others, that if I didn't get that treated, that apnea was going to cause a lot more serious problems down the road.
Yeah, certainly. That's our big concern. I mean, obviously the fact that you're not getting good quality sleep, and with something like sleep apnea, what's happening is when you relax, your tongue relaxes as well, especially if you're on your back. And that tongue just kind of slides to the back of the throat, and depending on what your mouth looks like, sometimes people have these big tonsils that get in the way. Sometimes their uvula is too big, and depending on their neck size, all of these factors combined, what happens is that there's this obstruction in the airway, and nothing can get by. And so when people relax enough to get into what we call REM sleep, it's rapid eye movement sleep. It's the stage of sleep where we get our most restful quality sleep, and we kind of slowly slip into REM sleep. But then that's when people have apnea. That's when they can't breathe necessarily. They stop breathing for periods of time, sometimes 10, 15, sometimes longer seconds, and their brain's not being oxygenated. Their overall blood oxygen goes down because there's something in the way. They're essentially choking.
The other part of this too is I was getting up and going to the bathroom during the night a lot of times, sometimes more than once. And now I can go 7.5 to 8.5 hours of sleep without even getting up. And so I put my head down on the pillow and I'm probably out in 5 minutes. And then it's 8 hours later, I'm getting up. And I'll tell you what, the other part of that too is I remember a lot of the dreams. And I guess in REM, you're having dreams, right? So
Exactly.
and so that part of it has been like a huge boost. But just overall, I think it makes you think more clearly. But in the long run, too, it's going to help your ticker, as we used to call it.
Exactly. Yeah, we talk about something called pulmonary artery hypertension. So the pulmonary artery is the artery that goes from the right side of the lung to the or right side of the heart to the lung, and that's where blood is oxygenated, and then it comes back through the pulmonary vein, and then that's pumped out to the rest of the body. So a lot of times in that pulmonary artery, you'll get blood pressure that goes up. It may not be elevated anywhere else. When we check your arm, it may not be elevated. A lot of times it will be though. And and when that pressure goes up, eventually it can cause something we call cor pulmonale, and it changes the flow, the dynamics in the heart, and it can be a bad thing. It can be fatal, and eventually.
Some people go to bed and they just don't get up, right?
Yeah,
That's something that I think most people. Well, I'll tell you what. I would rather maybe die in my sleep than, let's say, falling off a cliff. But I don't necessarily have a fondness for both. So either one. We've got more coming up with Jeremy Daly. He's a physician assistant at Tripp Family Medicine here in Twin Falls. And he's here with us until 9 o'clock this morning. It's Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine. Remember, life's too short not to feel good. A good night's sleep will help. It's 40 right now on KLIX. Jeremy Daly joins us in studio. He's a physician assistant at Tripp Family Medicine in Twin Falls. It's 8:43. We're at 40. Bill Colley with you as well this morning. I wanted to point out Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine is, well, we do it every week, and it's an opportunity for you as well. If you've got a comment or question for one of the medical pros to get involved as well, that number 208-736-0300. We also wanted to point out, Jeremy, the contact information at the office, because Dr. Tripp's office is still looking for new patients.
well, we love new patients. It's always fun to get to know new people and see what's going on with their health and help them feel better and improve their quality of life. So we're happy to take new patients. So you can find us in front of the post office on Fillmore and get a hold of us at 933-4400. You always get to talk to a person. We have great front desk staff. They really pride themselves on taking care of our patients and making sure that their needs are addressed. And great nurses, and we do an okay job too. I think providers taking care of our patients, and they feel like we spend time with them, and so it's a great place for us to work, and a great place to take care of people.
You were talking a little bit about sleep disorders. I have a friend, and he's the public address announcer. Some people I worked with actually did well in life. He's the public address announcer for the New York Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
And in the wintertime, he calls college basketball. As it turns out, spring training and college basketball sort of merge together. So he's trying to coordinate both of these things. And he's doing a lot of travel because just doing PA is not the entirety of his work with the Yankees. Got office duties and the like. And so he was on the road doing basketball, and he would drive sometimes between cities versus fly. So he'd be up all night driving after a game. And he never had a regular sleep pattern. And when he was 43, he suffered his first heart attack. And the doctor simply said, you've got to change your lifestyle because the way you sleep, when you sleep, you're not getting enough, first of all. And number two, you're not on a regular pattern. And he changed his lifestyle, and he is 55 years old now, and he seems incredibly healthy. He's recovered. But if he hadn't done that, he probably wouldn't be with us today. That would be a fear that I'd have. When people come to you, though, and they're working on swing shifts and the like, they don't really have any choice, I suppose, because one week they may be on the graveyard shift, another
Sure.
week they may be on days. How do they deal with all of this?
It's a good question. There's a lot of people that struggle with what we call shift worker disorder, and basically it's related to the fact that they never get into a regular sleep pattern, and it is difficult because we're trying to balance things like, well, is this something that you have to do? And most of the time they feel like, yes, this is my job, this is my livelihood, and they have a good reason to work whatever schedule they're working, and they don't want to lose their job. So if that's the case, then we have to say, well, how can we improve your chances of sleeping? One of the things that I talk to everyone about that comes into the office for sleep is something called sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene is really what kind of dysfunctional behaviors do we have that maybe we haven't addressed or identified in ourselves that we could change that would improve our quality of sleep. Most of the time we just get into these habits and we don't identify them as being dysfunctional because it's what we've always done. Maybe it's what our family has always done. So we don't know it as anything other than what you do. So some of the keys that I talk to people about are, well, creating an environment where you can sleep. So a lot of people, you go into their bedrooms and they have things like TVs on the wall, and they have radios, and they have obviously nowadays we talk about cell phones and tablets and things like that being in the room. The best thing you can do is get all of that stuff out of your room. Make sure it's a haven. It's a place where you can go, that there's no distractions, that there's no loud noises, making sure that you're not lying in bed watching television or going to sleep to the TV. Those things are a big deal. So having an environment set up where you can rest. A lot of people, they go into their room when they get home from work or wherever they're coming from, and they use their bed as a couch, and they're reading on the bed, or they're paying bills, or they're you know on their phone watching television on the bed. All of those things definitely, it your body knows. Your body knows the difference between a place where you sleep and a place where you hang out, where you relax. And if you spend time on your bed as a couch, you're not going to sleep as well. It's just the way that it is. That's been studied. Things like um, not having technology in your room. Televisions are a big thing. A lot of people say, well, I can't go to sleep unless I fall asleep watching the TV. And a lot of that is white noise, right? So we can easily come up with some better options, things like a box fan. There's noise machines, things that give some white noise
My
that,
dad used to listen to tapes of the ocean sounds, for instance.
well, and it's amazing now. I mean, to get your hands on a tape for ocean sounds, you have to go to the store. I mean, you can go to the app store without leaving anywhere, and find all sorts of bedtime noises. That would be a great way to basically put yourself in a position where you have some white noise without needing that blue light stimulation. So we talk a lot about that in terms of smartphones and tablets and TVs and computers. That blue light, your brain can't differentiate between daytime and nighttime as far as light goes. So if it's light, your brain's waking up.
Even the clock, if you have an old digital clock and it's got like a luminous, it's even if it's not going to make things bright, but that's if you've got it next to you on the nightstand, it's kicking out some light.
Yeah, that does make a difference. And the biggest thing that we see with those digital clocks, or any kind of clock, is people who put them next to their bed, they tend to clock watch. They lie in bed and they can't fall asleep. 10 minutes later they roll over, or an hour later they roll over, still not asleep. Now I only have 5 hours to sleep or 4 hours to sleep, and so it almost creates this anxiety situation for falling to sleep, where they feel pressure. They feel like, oh, I gotta get some sleep.
Couple of examples, and I'm probably not the only person who's ever dealt with this. My first place when I moved to Twin Falls that I lived, uh, just outside my windows. Well, the bathroom was adjacent to the bedroom, but just outside the bathroom window was a street lamp, so a lot of light could pour through there, and that was difficult. Two, when I was a kid, we lived for a number of years next to railroad tracks. So during the middle of the night, I actually got used to the point where I could sleep through the trains. But we're dealing today with a lot of noise. You've got garbage trucks coming early in the morning. You've got trains in some neighborhoods. You've got the street lamps. All of these things sometimes simply can't be avoided, especially if you bought your house 25 years ago and then somebody put a lamp up there afterward, and then things built out, and so now we're dealing with all of that too.
Sure, sure. I mean, there are definitely environmental factors that we can't change, and that's more difficult, I guess, depending on what you are able to do. I mean, putting extra insulation in your walls, having blackout curtains. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can improve those environmental factors, and sometimes you can't. And I guess at that point, if it's dramatically affecting your health, do you move? I don't know. I
I had
guess
a
that's
coworker, and I'm going back when I was probably working my way through college, and her name was Terry, and she worked with us. And she was a woman about 20 at the time, but she was having sleep issues. And she went to see the doctor, and they finally said her problem was she had a habit of stopping with friends after work for a few alcoholic beverages, just a few. But the doctor said, your problem is you're then going home and trying to sleep, and that's impeding your good night's sleep.
Oh, that's exactly right. That's one of the points that we always hit with sleep hygiene is, 4 to 6 hours before you fall asleep, you shouldn't be drinking things like caffeinated beverages, obviously, but alcoholic beverages are the same way. You shouldn't be having alcoholic beverages 4 to 6 hours before you go to sleep. So, for a lot of people, that means, well, you you either don't do it on weeknights because you're maybe at work when that time frame would allow you to have something like that, or you know, if, if it's that big of a deal to you, I guess you alter the time that you get off of work so you can do it. But in terms of avoiding things like that, it makes a big difference. There's a lot of people that they feel like they need to drink something before they go to bed, or they get home from work and they have a Coke or they have something that has a lot of caffeine, even coffee. I have some patients that will drink coffee all day long, and so they're staying up because of the stimulation from the caffeine or the diuretic effect of the
Right.
drinks that they're taking in. They're waking up multiple times a night to go to the bathroom.
I want to mention Jeremy Daly is joining us from Tripp Family Medicine. We're at 38, and this is Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine on News Radio 1310 KLIX and News Radio 1310.com. Bill Colley with you as well. Short of, though, and I have a friend, he has the mask he wears to blot out the light. He has some earphones he wears to blot out the sound.
Hmm.
He did get rid of his CPAP mask, but his wife just told him, I'm not going to deal with that. So,
You think
but
she'd rather not deal with the snoring?
he, the unless she's got a headset too that's earmuffs of some sorts. But probably there are people out there who are doing a combination of those just to get a good night's sleep, or they're doing all three, right? The
Yeah,
CPAP, the headphones, or at least the ear coverings, and then the eye coverings too.
sure. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there that are doing whatever they can to get good sleep, which is fine. And you have to make modifications. If you're not sleeping well, something has to be changed. So if you're having, some people say, well, I don't need as much sleep. Well, that could be true, but for the most part, it's not. We don't need less sleep as we age necessarily. 7 to 8 hours is still recommended for adults. You should be sleeping 7 to 8 hours a night. Otherwise, you're getting into deficit. There's really no way that you can catch up on sleep. A lot of people say, well, I catch up on the weekends. That doesn't work. It's a day-to-day thing.
One of the biggest myths out there, I think.
Right. Yeah, you can't catch up on your sleep on the weekends. So I think a couple of things to keep in mind. If you're having things like, you're waking up with headaches in the morning, or you're waking up not feeling like you've gotten a good night's rest, you're waking up multiple times at night, you're not falling asleep until later on in the night, later than you'd want to sleep. If there are issues like this, they do need to be addressed because they can affect your overall health, your weight, your blood pressure, your blood sugars are all affected by the quality of sleep that you get. People that sleep more tend to have diseases less. They tend to have better longevity. They tend to have better quality of life. All of those things, that equate to good things. Um, and so if you're struggling with these things, they need to be addressed. See your primary care doctor. Come see us, and we can talk about some strategies. Sometimes it's just behavioral stuff. Sometimes, like the sleep hygiene. Sometimes it's medication. Sometimes it's a combination of both. Sometimes it's a CPAP. We have to do these sleep studies and decide if you have sleep apnea. Sometimes people have restless leg syndrome, and they have this
Yeah.
terrible urge to move their legs or to be on their feet when they're trying to rest, and that can really negatively affect your quality of sleep.
Got about a minute left. The one that bothers me, it's called the black and white furry thing that likes to come in and start tapping me at 2:15 this morning. Now I was getting up at 2:30 because I had to get ready for work early, but and I was nearly had 8 hours sleep in. But friends will say, "Well, you're a dummy. You just close the door." But if you close the door, you hear scratching and meowing. So the choice is one or the other. And so people who actually have pets obviously sometimes have to deal with something waking them up in the middle of the night.
Yes, they do, and that's a tough call. I mean, people love their pets and they're part of their families and their lives, and so the simple answer is, well, get rid of the pet.
Yes.
But for a lot of people, that's their companion, their friend. So we understand that, but we have to, just like people, animals can be trained, right? We can train ourselves to sleep better. We can maybe find ways to teach our animals that they can't come in at night, and find ways that they can't scratch at the door. Put something on the door that is soundproof or that can't be scratched or whatever the case may be.
Garlic.
There you go. You find some way to modify the environment so that sleep quality can be improved, because it's a big deal. You got to take care of yourself. You got to sleep. And if you're not doing it, come see us. We'll take care of you. We'll find strategies, and whether it's, like I said, medicine or these polysomnography tests, the sleep study tests, or just behavioral modifications. I mean, sometimes it's just identifying particular behaviors that are dysfunctional and then addressing those, and improves everything.
We wanted to point out we got a few seconds left. Jeremy, for people again who'd like to get in touch with Tripp Family Medicine, how do they go about doing it?
Yeah, give us a call at 933-4400. You can definitely learn about us on our website at trippfamilymedicine.com if you want to get to know us through the website. And then we're on Facebook, Tripp Family Medicine. And I think we're on Instagram too, but there's plenty of ways to get a hold of us, but we'd like to see you in person.
I want to thank Jeremy Daly, physician assistant. Sometimes I have to slow it down. You said that when we sleep, our tongue relaxes. Sometimes when you're wide awake, too. We've got news coming up from the Fox Radio Network in just a couple of minutes. You've been listening to Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine. Remember, life's too short not to feel good.